everyone. My name is Gitika Gorsi, and today I am very, very excited and honored to be interviewing a very special space champion, Kavindi De Silva. Kavindi is a PR and corporate affairs officer at Inovor Technologies, an Australian company offering specialist development services and satellite mission solutions. Furthermore, she's an advisor for marketing and communications at SPACEWAY, a company dedicated to connecting the world through space technology and education. From being a space educator, TEDx organizer, and business strategist in the aerospace industry, Kavindi is an inspiring young professional in the space sector making her mark. On top of all of her accomplishments, she is an aspiring first Sri Lankan astronaut. I am so excited to learn about her journey into the space industry, how she combined her unique interests for business, policy, leadership with space, and how she hopes to achieve her goals of becoming the first Sri Lankan astronaut. So, welcome, Kavindi. Thank you so much for taking your time to inspire the next generation of aerospace leaders.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that warm introduction, Gitika.
Thank you. Just to kick off our conversation, I wanted to first start off by asking about your typical day. Whenever I ask this question, nobody ever seems to have a typical day, but how does your job generally run? What do you like to spend your time on during the day? And what does after hours look like for you?
So right now, with my role in public relations and corporate affairs, as the title says, it really revolves around any type of external comms that goes out of the company, any of the internal comms that we do within the company, but also on like how do we maintain and how do we get the message across to the public, also here in Australia, but also regionally and internationally on what the company is doing, on the applications that we're providing through space, the impact it creates, here on Earth. True that we're doing a lot of the stuff that is very technological and very intricate, but that all translates to some benefit here down on Earth. And one of the main things that I do every day in my day is that to find ways and to find places how I can get the community, the youth and students and kids engaged in space. Because once you do that at a very young age, it's very clear to you on how space actually benefits us on a day-to-day. Not many people really realize that, we carry our smartphones, we interact with technology all the time, and that's your connection to space, because all of that happens because we have space technology. So really getting that emphasis out there that you are already connected, and you don't have to go to space, or you don't have to really work in a space company or really understand the physics or the math, or what really people are scared of right now. When you say space, it's like, oh, I can't understand it, it's rocket science, like it's so complicated. It's not. Like, to kind of tone it down and to kind of make it more relatable to people. That's what I try to do, like every day, but with different groups of people that usually help fund projects and businesses, or people that try to educate and try to make that connection between industry and education, and academia, and sort of things like that. And also on the side, whenever we have any special projects in the company, for example, the internship program or any type of launch activity. So the company is having its first satellite launch, so it's a big part of our flight heritage. So that is coming up in November. So a lot of the things are happening around it. Social media campaigns, preparations for a launch party, and many other exciting things. So I really like my job because I get to do a lot of the stuff. I get to get my technical background, my technical skills, but also translate it to the general public and to people that really need to understand the importance of space. So it's a good mix of like my soft skills, my technical skills, but also what I really like to do. I like to talk to people. I like to just interact and communicate and get that message across. I know the importance of space and what role it plays in my life. I just want like that to be in everybody's life, because I really don't think there is a disadvantage or like oh, it's so bad to be involved in space, because no, I don't believe that. So I just want to kind of, get everybody involved as much as I can. That's kind of my day. But after hours, I do like to attend events that sometimes are space related, tech related, or maybe neither. Because my role also involves a lot of events and organizing of it, participating of it. A lot of the universities here have their events after hours where industry can get involved, talk about space, explain what opportunities the industry has. So I do a lot of that stuff as well. But personally, I also like to learn dancing, but also engage in social dancing. So kind of sort of maybe from a workout perspective as well. So I like to also engage in the arts, just, to dance away, I guess, after hours.
That's amazing. I'm glad that you're able to find those times as well, apart from your work. And even just like initially kind of coming back to what you said earlier, I think you mentioned some really critical points when it comes to the space sector and especially commercial companies in space. Space is everywhere. It's not exterior like you were mentioning. We use it every day. Like the fact that you're in Australia and I'm in the US right now, we're able to talk, even though we're completely on different sides of the world, is because of satellite technology. And I think more than ever with satellite companies, they have such a direct impact into our daily lives, more than we even realize. So with your background, especially in business and what you're doing to educate folks about why we need to continuously invest in this space companies that will, and also just to mention, I think you also were hinting at the fact that every company is almost a space company because we use satellites for everything. So, in terms of educating the public and investing more about satellites, my next question for you is, how do you think we are doing as a space community in educating folks, people who are non-space folks, whatever that means, about the satellite industry? Satellites are used every day, every minute for so many different purposes. Do you think we're doing a good job in educating the public? And if not, what do you think that we need to continue pushing to do to raise awareness to younger students as well as adults that satellite technology and space exploration in general is so critical to our daily lives?
Absolutely. I think already the world, I would say, is doing a good job, but we can always do better. What I mean by they're doing a good job is there are a lot of the countries that have space as one of their priorities as a country, as an industry, right? And some of the countries have the world's greatest companies that really work very hard every day to get that message across of the awareness of satellites and the technology that's behind it and space in general. But there are some countries and some parts of the world that this is really not the reality just now. And maybe it's because it's not a priority of the country. Maybe it's because of any there is a gap between the skills that are needed to kind of fit these careers or these pathways. And I think that's where we kind of need to work more, targeting those regions and these countries that feel disconnected with space, or maybe it's educationally, maybe they don't have any educational pathways, maybe they don't have any engagement. Sort of like I would say here, I would see every other day or every other week there is a space related event or somewhere something indirectly or directly kids and young people can interact and do things with. It's not really the same, especially when I was back in Sri Lanka. It's not the same. Like I think we might get an event like every other month or maybe every year. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's not the same, and I think that we need to increase more. I think after COVID, one of the good things that happened is these online learning platforms and online events have been so accessible to the communities out
Right.
there, that they can, again, like me and you, just from Sri Lanka to the US and to Australia, everywhere, they can just participate from home, from their schools, from the institutions, and get that knowledge that was actually missing. Because everybody thinks, like, when you say astronomy or space or astrophysics for that matter, oh, I want to go work at NASA, I want to be a NASA astronaut. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's the only information we get. And I think there is a problem there because people
Yeah.
need to realize that that's one space agency out of the 70 plus that there is in the world. And there's so much opportunities out there in terms of
Right.
education, in terms of career. And even if you don't want to do either of them, it's still to get your knowledge across the space horizon or
Yeah.
trying to understand a concept and things. There's a lot of the things online. I mean, look at what you're doing, right? You're doing all these interviews and these videos, and people can watch them and learn and take a trajectory on where they can kind of focus, where they can be, and understand that there's a different way of starting, and then there's a different way of progressing for everybody. It's very unique. And I think that is something we need to work on. Still, companies that are doing good, but also companies that are just starting to build their brand and starting to engage their communities internationally and locally as well. So there's a lot of work to do, but I also appreciate the work that companies have already done.
No, I think again, you mentioned so many important points. I think that was really it really encapsulated your answer with a lot of things that are so critical. First off, even mentioning the fact that so many people around the world think the only way to get involved in space is becoming a NASA astronaut. Like that's the epitome of space. And of course, I think it's super cool to become a NASA astronaut, and that's a kid's dream for so many. But also, as you mentioned, not only are there so many other space agencies, but you don't even have to be an astronaut to be a part of the space industry. Apart from the fact that we also have commercial astronauts these days, and hopefully that'll become more accessible as we have more flights going up to space. But we need all these interdisciplinary interests in the space sector. From being, I'm interested in medicine, so becoming a space, medicine professional, space doctor, a space lawyer, a space business, policy analyst, a space economist, a space artist. We literally need every discipline, a technician. We need everyone. So even just giving that thought and that idea that you can play a role with your unique interest in space in any country and contribute to the space economy there is really amazing. And as you were mentioning, there are so many places around the world where space is still not as accessible, and maybe there are one or two commercial companies attempting to push the space ecosystem, but they require a lot of support from outsiders. This past summer, actually, Ignited Thinkers had a really cool opportunity to go to Tanzania, and where they don't have a space agency yet, and conduct a huge summit to inspire over 400 kids to get involved with space and the space economy in Africa, and some that's growing even in their country in Tanzania right now, and show them how you don't have to come to America, go to Australia, be in Europe to do something. There's so much already in their country that they can get involved in. Actually, Tanzania's government is planning to launch their first satellite next month. So it's very exciting
Wow.
how yeah, a lot of countries that have such a small space presence right now are working towards growing it. And like you said, the first step is really just educating the children that there's this opportunity for them, and it's realistic. It's not impossible. And so we hope to do these summits in other places as well. And when you were talking, I was only thinking to myself, I know so many people who reach out to me on LinkedIn who are from Sri Lanka or from other places around the world. Like, how do I get involved in space if there's no space company I can join? And so I'm very fascinated with your journey as a young woman, how you got involved in the space sector, especially in satellites, especially with both a technical and a non-technical background. So you have so many different layers to your story. So I have to ask the question, what was the aha moment that inspired you to pursue a career in space? And what was that journey like to get to where you are today? Because I'm sure it was not linear.
No, how do I start this? So I think there might have been like three aha moments that kind of had that non-linear path to where I am today. And I think it started when I was very, 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 very young. Space was something that uh, connected to me when I was about 6 years old. At that moment, I was living in Germany with my parents before they moved to Sri Lanka, and I spent 2 years of my primary school days, like the first and second year there. So one day I was hanging out in the library. I saw a magazine that had the picture was the first EVA, the first spacewalk that we have done in the world, and that picture, and I was just so fascinated, like, what is this? Like, who is this? Where it is? I had so many questions, and I just took it to the library, and I was like, what is that? Who is that? Like, and then just like, okay, take this magazine home and read it, or like apply for it, register for it. They'll send you a copy. It was like a space magazine type of thing. And I don't know, that day I was like, I want to be that. Like, I want to know what that is. I want to be connected to it. And since that day, I still have that page that I had from when I was 6 years,
Wow.
and that always like resonated with me. Even when we went back to Sri Lanka, I was interested in space. I was interested in science, but I just didn't have a direct pathway or like direct connection. And so when I grew up in Germany, I felt like technology, space, just for example, robotics, things like that, they were not um, like everybody did it like as a kid, right? They were engaged, they knew this was existing. But when I went back to Sri Lanka, it was kind of a culture shock because I didn't have a community, I didn't have friends that were interested, and it was more on like what the boys were interested in, or like things that were just not visible. And I felt very disconnected at that point. And all the connection I was able to get was, just on encyclopedia and just what I would, go through and see. And I think I did the same thing in Sri Lanka. I tried to find newspapers and magazines that spoke about space, that had like a poster every month for free. And I, subscribed and collected those, hung on my wall. So I still wanted to be connected in some way. And when I grew older, I started to find that a lot of the schools in the city areas have astronomy organizations and clubs and actually do these things. And no matter what people said, like astronomy, space, no. And some people actually mistook it as astrology because, in South Asia, astrology is a big part. And the moment you talk about planets, they just switch the narrative and it's all about, me trying to tell you the future. And there was a good part about it because people still related me to the planets, but not in a way that I wanted to. um, uh, but it kind of made me more aware that I need to create opportunities. I need to put myself in places where I feel most connected to space. So when I saw all these big schools, private schools, semi-government schools doing these big projects or like these workshop type of events, I was like, why isn't my school doing anything? And I found out that long time ago there was an astronomy club, but there's no more anymore. And I reinitiated that at my school, and I was thinking it's not just for me, but I'm pretty sure there are people interested in space and want to see like Saturn through a telescope, and let's try to get a telescope and all of that stuff. So I spent a good amount of years in my school trying to get the club started and trying to get other schools in the region started collaborations, and I was able to get the big city school astronomy clubs involved, and then that was like a whole thing. So I was like, I did that, that means like I can do more. So I just kept like expanding my horizons in like, okay, school, okay, university, okay, now what, and now what. And that really encouraged me to be like, okay, I can do this. And I made it, and I made it to myself saying I want to do like an astrophysics astronomy career, like start, because I thought that was my way in becoming an astronaut and becoming what I saw when I was 6 years old. And the fact that we had Sir Arthur C. Clarke as one of the icons in Sri Lanka, and the fact that he was connected with space technology and that he was like a very well world-renowned person, I was able to attend this workshop organized with his advice in Sri Lanka. And this was 1 year before he actually passed away. So we were the only group of people that were able to sit down and just at least have a picture or actually like saw his existence in real life. So I was very lucky that I had that moment. But again, things like that really made me feel like I'm doing the right thing. I'm going in the right pathway. So I enrolled myself in an astronomy and physics degree at Louisiana State University. I did like 2 years of kind of college type of education in Sri Lanka, and then I transferred my credits. So that's how that was my way. But when I was working and studying at LSU, I was also an undergraduate research assistant in the Department of Physics, and I was like, I felt the luckiest at that time because I was able to work with one of the Nobel Prize laureates, Dr. Bradley Schaefer, and he was like one of the most inspiring people I've ever met and such a great mentor. And seeing how my talent kind of worked in the research side of things, I was so fascinated to actually learn about the things I used to teach kids. And like, I didn't know anything. I just read something, I learned by myself, and I just wanted
Yeah,
to teach it. But
right.
now I'm really actually learning the really depth of stars and how they evolve and all these crazy things. Um, Once that was there, I had to get back to Sri Lanka for personal reasons, and I was just really heartbroken that I couldn't kind of continue my studies, continue what I was doing. But then when I went back, I just had so much knowledge more than what I had. So a lot of people reached out to me. A lot of people wanted to do projects with me in terms of outreach. So I still felt like, okay, it's not the end of the, the tunnel there. I still have hope that I can somehow get connected. But because I was so much connected to education and outreach, I thought, okay, maybe that's my second passion. So let's give that a try because there's nothing space related in Sri Lanka. And that's when I got involved in business management, in comms, in marketing, all of that side, because I also worked and studied at this private university in Sri Lanka that provided all these opportunities. And the mentors and the bosses that I had there were also super, super supportive and, wanted me to always try and connect space to what I was doing. Like they were just so nice about that. And that's when I studied business management and I saw how disconnected I was with the rest of the community because I want to do projects in space tourism. I want to do projects, something related to space.
Right.
And it was like, are you crazy? Like, what do you mean you want to do space? Like, is that even possible? So it's like, okay, this is what I need to do. Like, I have this technical knowledge I have because even when I was doing research, the amount of things that you learn and the amount of problems you have to solve, the depth that you go in, it disconnects you from, I would say, the real world, from the community, because not everybody understands what you're doing. And it requires you to, like, you present in conferences, you present in places where you actually explain your science. I wanted to do more of that. So I thought this was a great opportunity, for me to kind of combine all the two worlds together. And at that same time, I found the International Space University, and they were offering a course, one of their summer programs in Australia. And I applied for it, I got into it, and that was just the door opening to me of like, oh my God, I don't have to do astrophysics, so I don't need to go that pathway to become an astronaut. There's so many other ways. And that's when I learned about, all the 7 departments in space and what I can do. And just that was I think the second like aha moment for me, being like, oh my God, like wow, what like this
Yeah.
is great. And I met so many like-minded people, and all the people I've met there are like still my best friends. And from that moment onwards, I was very much involved with the International Space University. I helped with many of their space studies programs that were held in Europe, and I was the external relations comms person in the group. So again, I don't have a background like a technical like educational background in marketing and comms, but that's all what I worked in the background professionally and engaged with. So like I just love that I was becoming a space communicator without me even realizing that I was becoming one. And yeah, and fast forward, I decided to do the master's with the International Space University, and that was half of it was pre-COVID, half of it was post-COVID. Fortunately or unfortunately, but hey, that's where we got. And right before COVID hit, is when my third aha moment came. And when I was involved in organizing the 2019, yes, the 2019 Space Studies program, my boss told me, "Hey, we have a VIP coming in for one of the lectures, for one of the events. Would you mind going and picking him up? Because I can't go. There's like a lot of things." Like, sure, of course. Like always, I think later in life I realized I have a problem saying no. So I always try to like to say yes, especially when it comes to space things. Like I'll figure it out somehow. Like, okay, I don't have time to sleep. That's okay. I'll figure it out. So it's like, of course, yes, like, sure, I'll do it. And then she said, but you have to drive to Switzerland with my other colleague and bring him. So yeah, fine, that's okay. And that was Dr. Buzz Aldrin. So I was just you can imagine. I mean, that's like a
That's
hero, right?
that's huge.
Yeah, and we went there, we picked him up, and it was just such a nice interaction. And we learned so much just on the side of, sure, the technical aspect of trying to get to the moon and all. I think that's everywhere people can read about it, but like the human aspect of like how much they have sacrificed, how much they did not know, how much just they didn't know they were going to come back to Earth, and they still did it. That motivation and that like that drive, and along all these conversations, he also told me that he loves diving, he loves like going to other countries, traveling, all of that. So I was like, you have been to space, you've been to the moon. What is your favorite country? Like, where have you like gone?
Yeah,
And at this
what
point,
top space?
like, right, and at this point, like, he didn't know I was from Sri Lanka. I didn't like tell him that we never got there, and he said Sri Lanka, and I was like, what? Like, no way. And he said
Wow.
that's because one of my best friends used to live in Sri Lanka, and he said that was Sir Arthur C. Clarke, and that he has come there, visited him a couple of times, but the last time he couldn't go because he got sick, and Arthur C. Clarke got sick, and then he's like, he has such a best friend, and he mentioned like three places in Sri Lanka. Like, oh my God. But it's like, wow. Like it was a full circle moment for me. And it really just made me feel like I'm in the right place. Like I'm doing the right thing. And I just need to continue doing that. And I just, like give myself some credit of like, because I'm always like, I forget to look back. I always like forget to breathe. So that moment I just felt like, okay, I've come a long way. Like this is it, right? And of course my support system, a lot of my friends and my mentors were just like, Kavindi, do you realize this? And again, that was like the third and the best aha moment ever. And just kept me pushing and kept me moving towards getting more people, again, more outreach, more education, more space. um and later on I got involved with a few more other companies to work with, and my most recent one before I joined Inovor Technologies was with Space Hero. That was a media and space company that is about privatization and also commercialization of the aspect of sending a normal person to space. And I think that gave me a lot of experience on tackling with countries and regions that have zero space access, and how can we kind of get that community started, to get them excited about space and get them to feel that space is more cool, more like we have to be like it's good to be connected to it, kind of sort of thing. And we always dealt with the general public who had no idea about space or like didn't know their connection towards it. And so that gave me a lot of experience on like how I can translate space and technology to investors, to business people who at the end of the day sign the check, for you to pursue all these amazing space projects. And then I decided like I need to make the move to kind of how can I bring all those skills into like one place and one company. And another full circle moment. So the first time I was in Australia, one of my classmates is now the COO of the company that I'm working for, and they were looking for a person to work in the company, and it's like all the things that they were looking for. I was like, I think that's me, and it's like, I think maybe that's you, because they also knew me for that, for those roles, for those tasks and responsibilities. And fast forward again, I'm here, and it's been a few months now, and I'm really loving it. As I said in our first question, like really love what I'm doing, really love that I can use all the knowledge that I have, and keep educating people, keep people getting connected more to space. And even here, even though like it's a technology company, when a student comes and asks me, like, I'm doing like a mechanical engineering job, do you, like a degree, do you have something for me? I'm doing computer science, do you have something for me? Or some people would be like, oh, I'm doing computer science, I don't think I can work in your company. It's like, no, you can. So I kind of take a step back. It's like, do you know that there are like 7 disciplines and you can actually do this? So I kind of try to help them personally, not just in terms of like, of course, getting people involved just with the company. So, and I think people appreciate that, and I'm also very happy that I can do that on the side as well.
That's so inspiring. I think just even hearing your story from like the beginning to where you are right now and where you aspire to be in the future, I think it is incredibly inspiring to hear your journey. So, really, thank you for sharing that. I think you mentioned some really, really, again, important things. I think a lot of students, including myself, can take away with from like what you said. I think the first biggest one is trying to like find your place. It's like so difficult for people around you to be like, oh, that's not like a suitable career path. Like, is that that. What are you talking about? I've had many people say to me, oh, is space medicine like a real career? Like, what is that? Like, it sounds cool, but I don't know if that's realistic. I've had so many people tell me that, and to this day. And there's a lot of people who will say a lot of things about whatever you're interested in. But I think the fact that you found the place for you, that, found you had that community, you created a community, you started your own club at your school, so, or reignited it, I should say. And I think finding a place, creating a community was the first biggest thing. And the second part that you really mentioned that really stuck out to me was you say that you don't say no to a lot of things and you always say yes. And I honestly, it's like, of course, I mean, you shouldn't say yes to everything, but I think it's a great quality to not say no, because that means you're putting yourself in every situation, taking advantage of every opportunity that comes your way. And that led you to meeting, Buzz Aldrin, which is pretty epic story to share one day. So really, I think just the fact that you are embracing every opportunity is something that every student should always learn to do. And I think the third thing that you kind of mentioned at the end was the networking piece. You connected with someone who you ended up knowing from this company who, the dots just connected, and that happens from constant persistence. I wouldn't say it's just luck. It's a lot of hard work that you put over the years to fostering those connections, those relations. And I think it's so important for everyone to realize not everything comes super easily, but I think you had this growing passion. And even if you deviated to other things, you still had that constant, like, oh, I still want to do this in some capacity, and you found your role in it. So I think it's so inspiring to see that you continuously persisted to get to where you are today, but you still don't stop and you still want to continue educating others, which I think is very admirable. So really thank you. And in your journey, I could clearly tell that you've had some rough points, but you also overcame them. And I think it's so easy to look at someone's LinkedIn or resume, and be like, oh, like they knew it all. Like, she went to International Space University, like she knew what she was doing. Did you have obstacles in your journey? And if so, how were you able to overcome these obstacles? I think that's the most important thing of like, how do I overcome this challenge that I'm facing right now? Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah. I mean, uh, there were many obstacles for me to get to where I am, and one of the things was the community I was placed in. Because as reiterate and mention, I created a community. I created my support system. I did that because where I belonged, or where I placed initially, did not do the job that I wanted, or they were not helpful. And rather than pointing fingers and blaming, I just removed myself and created a community, created a support system that would support me to go where I am. And I was very confident in myself and very confident in, like, this is where I want to be. And I think that's what helped me, kind of, that was my motivation, really. But I think this is not a very common opinion, and I like to always reiterate this when I'm doing this type of interviews and having the chance to talk to people like you, is sometimes your family will not support you, and that could be your parents, that could be your very first teachers, and that could be your very first bosses. But you should take their feedback, but also not entangle it with culture, with religion, with the society, because that's a very, very small unit. And if you want to study space and you want to get to space, you need to get out of there and see the world in a different way, from a different angle, right? And for me, I was always like put in boxes and said, like, you're no space, are you crazy? You're a girl, you're supposed to be a wife and have kids and get married. And I'm like, I mean, sure, of course, maybe one day, but like, that's not what that's really not what I envision myself. And it's in the Sri Lankan community, like, majority people are very religious, very like culturally oriented, very family oriented, and there are roles assigned to you, from birth, and it's really hard to break out of it. And when it's also very much of a patriarchal society where you have your peers and mentors, but they're all men, and you don't have anybody to relate to. Those kind of things I struggled through. And the fact that my parents and others, relatives, like, were very judgmental of me, did not support me in any type of way or form, and I had to always start convincing them. It was really like getting frustrating at some point. But I think if I had to pick one person that supported me, eventually that was my dad. And but I can see that even he was pressurized at some point with my family. It's like, is it right that she's doing that? She's a daughter, she's a girl, and all these like doubts also on him that kind of reflected towards me. But again, I was so lucky. I found friends, I found mentors and bosses that were just amazing and really filled that kind of void of like, okay, I'm not getting support from here, but this is the support I need, and these are the people that I need to stick with or have my back no matter what. And I think that inspired me to, again, say yes, put myself in places and situations where I felt like I belonged more. And, volunteering in things like TEDx and, similar organizations just brought in so many people that were bold, that were determined, that were just having out of the world thoughts and ideas. And that's where I want to be, kind of. And that was one aspect. And also like my family is a middle class family. So we were not financially out up there to like for me to go anywhere I want and pursue studies or a career opportunity. So I had to deal with a lot of the things like that as well. And also I couldn't just sit home and wait until my father paid everything for me. So that's when I took the break in the middle when I came to Sri Lanka, and I was like, okay, I'm doing business, I'm doing like education. This is where I'm going to be, because at least someone can learn something, I can earn something. I know I can use that money to do some outreach activities, still that it'll motivate me. And those things at that time I thought were the biggest setbacks, and I thought were the biggest challenges, and was the end of my space career, was the end of my dream of becoming an astronaut. But fast forward a few years, and how everything just connected, and how I met certain people, and how I got into certain places. That was just timing, and that was just, I think I did the most of what I had, and I just kept on putting myself in places and situations where I thought I should be. And there's a lot of people in the world that's going to tell you no, or that's going to tell you you're wrong, and saying you're crazy, and things like that, and also make you feel like you don't belong in certain places. Could be because of your gender or your identity. Also could be because you're from a different country, or the way you look, or maybe there are not enough people that look like me and you out there doing incredible things, or we have a knowledge gap that we don't get that information. But for me, it was always like, there has to be someone. Like I cannot be the first person doing this. So the moment I always got like access to internet, or like I had like my time to like search and do things. And I think the fact that I had a lot of comms skills and knew how to navigate myself in like, let's say, social media, or like, let's say, in platforms where I can get that information extracted, I was really good at doing that. So I used it, for my benefit and for doing what I'm doing right now. But I think you should never be discouraged just because your first layer of support system, family, relatives, all of that, probably sometimes best friends as well. In my case, my best friends are my first layer of support. They always believed in me. They always encouraged me. Craziness is more of a compliment than trying to bring me down. So don't get discouraged. Just feel and believe in yourself that you will get there one day. It might feel like some people in the world are, by when they're 20, they are doing incredible things, and they are like having 2 degrees and blah, 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 and you haven't even started college. That's okay. Like, your timeline is your own timeline, and just get involved and get busy with getting involved and getting that message across to your community. Start locally, you're definitely going to get internationally. That's like kind of my belief, and how everything will fall into place for you. So that's, yeah.
No, and I just again, I think so many students can relate to what you just said, and I think again, like I truly mean it when I say this. I think it's so inspiring that you're very honest, and that's what I love about this podcast is we really learn about people's stories that you can't really see online through their resumes, but something that we all can relate to. I think so many girls, so many students around the world can relate with what you're saying. I've given a few webinars in India or in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and a lot of students have told me I really love space, but nobody around me sees it as a realistic career choice. They're like, "What are you gonna do by pursuing a physics degree?" And I've had some people be like, "How do I convince my parents, or how do I convince others to support me?" And it's sad that we're still in a time where we're looking for so many firsts of this, first of the country, first of the area. And I'm so glad that commercialization in space is enabling so many students to be inspired to see, astronauts who look like them, people who look like them in the space sector. But we continuously, like you were mentioning, need to do a better job of educating the public of the unique and expansive opportunities that exist in the space industry. I'm not going to say every country has millions of jobs like in the US or the Australian market or the European market. I'm not going to lie and say that, but there are a lot of growing opportunities that you can join and be a part of. And if you're really passionate, there is a place for you to be, this,
Hmm.
the person who's taking charge and leading your country in that direction. And I think even providing students with that confidence to be like, you can do this, like
Yeah,
regardless of your background or where you're from, is like
yeah,
the most critical thing that I'm also incredibly passionate by.
yeah.
So just even hearing you and how the way you did it yourself, I think is inspiring to so many Sri Lankan girls, but even just students around the world who might be facing a similar situation to you. So
Yeah.
really thank you for that advice of being like, we need
Hmm.
to find that first layer of support, but also more importantly, believe in yourself and your dreams. I think that's
Yeah.
the most
And
important thing.
and I think also to add to that, educationally, there are a lot of scholarships available. I didn't know that. I thought I had to pay every single penny, for my degrees and all of that. But you have to look outside, which, I learned kind of the hard way of like, nobody told me, and I wish somebody told me to do this. And there are a lot of scholarships available for different types of categories that you would probably fit in and you can get qualified to. And as you said, if your country doesn't have the opportunities, look for the neighboring country, look for the other country, look for the next continent. Like, you can find something online or offline on site that you can get related to. And I think like search for it, and don't think you're the first person that is trying to do this. I think that's again one of the mistakes or one of the myths that was laid upon me, saying I'm the only person and the first person that is going to do things, just not the truth. So I think put yourself out of that box and out of that limitation. And I think that will take you a long way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kavindi, for taking your time to really inspire all of us. I really enjoyed hearing you as a young professional talking about your journey and where your journey will go. I'm honestly so excited to see you go to space one day. Maybe we'll go to space
Yes,
together. I think your
maybe.
journey is so incredibly inspiring, especially for me, and I'm positive anybody else who's listening. It really is inspired by your courage and what you're doing for not only the space industry, but just so many girls who will see you one day or even who are seeing you today, I know are looking up to you in so many different facets in so many different spaces, especially in engineering and especially in the space field. So, really thank you for what you're doing, and I hope to meet you in person one day.
Yes, me too. And as you said, maybe the day will be when we are going to space together.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.